Welcome to Livestream number 181. It is Friday. It is June 29th, 2018. It's Friday, so welcome to another Cam Friday. See here, I'm just a little bit early. If you're watching the recording, I will not blame you for a fast forward here for a couple of minutes. I can see we got Isaac here just in 3D. Darren, Robert, really appreciate all you guys taking the time to join today's live stream. Just a few minutes early here, just to kind of get everybody a chance to come in here, join in on this Friday afternoon. Today's topic is different. Today's topic is PowerMill for for beginners. I kind of warned in the end of yesterday's live stream that was what we're gonna touch on today for a couple of reasons. Normally on Fridays on these live streams, we are talking, of course, Fusion 360. We are talking CAM, and today I'm gonna show you PowerMill. So PowerMill is also an Autodesk CAM product, and there's some pretty neat things in there that I think even if you're doing CAM within Fusion that you will like. All right, we can see people just coming in here. We got Ulrich, Timothy. Absolutely appreciate all of you guys taking the time. Link down in the description area. You should always check that out, especially on Fridays with the free CNC Handbook down there. So if you haven't had a chance to grab that one, just go down and grab that one. You get prompted to put in your email address, but I have never ever sent an email to that one, so don't worry about spam or anything. Also, what else should I point out today? It's Friday. I'm wearing my my favorite Friday t-shirt. I'm talking about some machining here. All right, let's see here. Looks like we are all set. We got people on Facebook. Hello, Facebook. We got people on the live stream on YouTube. Absolutely appreciate it. So, with that, count us down. Let me get rid of that one and let's get going with today's live stream. I'm excited about this one. All right. Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to live stream number 181. My name is Lars Christensen, and today I'm going to show you something that I think everybody who loves CAM is going to enjoy. Today's topic is PowerMill for absolute beginners. Wait a minute, isn't this normally Fusion 360? Well, normally it is, but hey, sometimes you gotta try something new, and that's what we're doing today. So thumbs up, thumbs down, leave me a comment down in the comment area. There's a couple of reasons, there's 3 reasons that I am going to do this one today on PowerMill. Number 1, well, a few people had asked me if I could do an absolute beginner on PowerMill, just kind of showing the realm of that, just like I've done with Fusion 360. Second of all, though, if you are a Fusion 360 user, don't shut off yet. There's some pretty cool functions inside of PowerMill that I think that you will enjoy. And don't forget, the 2 products are owned by the same company, and we got that idea station. So you maybe would like that. And then third, what maybe is most important. So in my past experience, I have used different kinds of CAM programs, Mastercam, CamWorks, Inventor HSM, all these different products. It's always good to know some of the other products that is out there, right? And kind of just, you gotta go for a new job interview and somebody asks you, have you ever used PowerMill? Well, after today, you can at least say, well, somewhat familiar with the interface. So, got 65 people in the YouTube. I'm not sure how many we have in the Facebook one, but appreciate all you guys taking the time to join this. So yes, this is going to be an absolute beginner. I just want to give you an overview of how to create Toolpaths inside of PowerMill. That's what you're looking at here. And actually, this is kind of like new to me too, because what we're actually doing here is I'm using a virtual desktop, but it's kind of new for me too. But this is really just to give you an idea. So if this is kind of the first time you're getting into PowerMill, and then I'm probably going to draw some similarities with Fusion 360. Really, if you've used any other CAM product, all this is gonna look fairly familiar. I pulled up this block here. My good friend Rob Walker have done an official series on this part here, so you can definitely check that out on PowerMill.com. But pretty much what we have is we have a very important tree over here in the left. This is where most of the action is gonna happen. And it's actually fairly easy to use. You got the ribbon bar up here. We're familiar with that from other kind of softwares. There's a lot of options in PowerMill, but don't freak too much out of that. After today, if I do a decent job, you should feel pretty good about it. Then we got some different views over here. We're gonna touch on that a little bit too. And then of course, we have the model in the screen here. One of the things I like is I actually like the counters down here in the bottom when you are moving around. That's one of the things for some reason I like. Familiar with Autodesk product, we have the view cube, so you can click on the view cube to kind of orientate you around. You can also hold down the middle mouse button and you can kind of pan around the model, spin the wheel to zoom in and out. All that stuff. That's not what we're gonna go too much into. Now, let's start applying some toolpath and just kind of like give you the basic bearings of this. So, like I said, this is not Fusion 360. This is not a new look, but PowerMill is a really powerful CAM software, and I think that even if you're coming from Fusion, that you're gonna like to kind of see some of the cool functions that is inside of PowerMill. Just like inside of Fusion 360, first thing we kind of like got to define is a setup. So we're gonna go up here and create a block. Now this is kind of defining your stock. So I'm gonna click on that, and then you get this drop-down menu. In here, you got different options, and I'm not gonna go through all of them. Don't worry too much about everything in the beginning. Go down here, you can select your coordinate system. So I'm gonna select the global transform. That's kind of like the global one for the software here. And then I'm just gonna hit calculate. And you will see that automatically it kind of creates that boundary box around the stock, just like we have in Fusion. We can add some tolerances and things like that. So we now have defined our stock. So we're gonna accept that. That is the block up here. So the block define on the home tab, define our stock. Next, we're gonna set our D54 or work offset, or kind of like our work plane. And that's right next to it. So you don't have to go too far. And when you have created a stock, then you get an option down here to use that stock to select your work coordinates on. So we're going to select that. So that's why we start out with the stock. And when we do that, we get some different colored beach balls around on our stock here. We can select wherever you want to select. I normally like to select the back left corner, back because that's against my solid jar, and the left because, well, that's where normally the tool changer is. So I'm going to click on that. And when I clicked on that, it's kind of like a little pink in here in the screen. I don't know who comes up with colors in CAM software, but come on, can we be a little manly? Pink? No, just kidding. When we have clicked over here, then we're actually going to start using this important left tree. So over here you will see there's a work plane, and if I hit the little plus sign next to it, there is that coordinate system we just set. Everything over here can be right-clicked. Just make a mental note of that. So I'm going to right-click on that. And you can click on the work plane editor, and that will kind of bring the triad back here. And what I want to do is I want to change my direction of my X and my Y. And the way you can do that is if I hold down the left mouse button by grabbing this X arrow, it will actually snap to corners. So I can snap right here, and that now have kind of moved that origin the way we want. So I'm going to hit accept to that. And we have now just set our stock, right? You can see the boundary, the stock there with the block. And we have created our pickup point or work offset, G54, whatever you want to call it, that is sitting down here. If you're working inside of Fusion 360 or Inventor HSM, you know that the next thing we normally do is our tool, right? So we normally apply a tool to this, and I have Fusion 360 sitting down in the corner down here. That is that is not correct, but This is PowerMill. The next thing we do is normally create a tool. Now there is a tool database inside of PowerMill, but I want to show you how you. In this one, I'm just going to create standard tools. I think tool libraries is a whole other topic. So you can go up here and you can create your tool, and here you can just create the tool that you have on the shop floor. So I'm going to create like a roughing shell mill or insert cutter, 50 millimeters in diameter. And I don't know how big your cutter is here. Let's make it 5 millimeters, 10 millimeters with your thickness of the cutter. You can also down here set the number of flutes. Let's give it 5 inserts. And then I'm going to come back to these a little bit later. You can apply shank to it too. And if you do that, then you can go over here and click plus sign, and we can add a little bit of shank. We can make it a little bit longer if we wanted to here. This is really not so important for what I'm trying to do here, so I'm just gonna go in and leave this cutter just like this and hit close. So I clicked up here and said create a new cutter and applied the cutter that I want to kind of rough this part out with. When I did that, you will now see that cutter applies over here in the left. So everything's gonna kind of like appear over here, and you will actually see it has a number 1 next to it because I didn't name it. You can always right click and you can click settings. That will bring you back into the menu in here, and I could give it a name. So roughing is probably rough cutter. Insert cutter is probably better. Insert cutter. So anything in here, you shouldn't have seen anything that really is too much different that we normally do when we are working inside of Fusion or anything else. We created our stock, we set our work coordinate system, we have now created the first cutter. We are now ready to apply some toolpath. All right, so and this is where the fun starts with PowerMill. And for all you Fusion 360 CAM users, just check out some of the cool stuff in here. So I'm going to go over and say I'm going to create a new toolpath. And if you are familiar with PowerMill or you've heard of PowerMill before, you know that PowerMill is extremely powerful. They have different 5-axis porting. They have a lot of, it's used a lot for really complex 5-axis. But this one here, I'm just going to do some 3-axis. I'm going to go in and add a area clearance here. And I am going to select a model area clearance. So we're going to use the model to kind of clear some of this material away. I'm going to click on that. You can see here, if I click on it, we get some nice different views in here. Add a model area clearance, hit OK. And then we're going to be prompted here with the first kind of dialog box to start applying your toolpath. And I will always recommend start from the top and work your way down. So the first thing, we're going to give this a name for this toolpath. I'm going to call it roughing, for example. You will see over here to the left that we have the work plane, or what I call the work coordinate system G54. We've already set that. We already set our block here. Our tool, well, we had that insert cutter we just created sitting over here. I'm going to show you something cool about this in a second. So that is already selected. So we can move down to the model area clearance. And there is a lot of different things you can do inside of PowerMill. You will find a lot more control than, for example, we're used to inside of Fusion. But that's kind of, great power, great responsibilities. In here, I'm going to go over to the right section. And I'm going to change the style in here, and you will see we get some view here. You will see down here there's something called vortex. That is very much like adaptive clearing inside of Inventor HSM and Fusion 360. So just so you're aware of that. If I select offset model, it will actually collapse from the outside and work its way in. So that's almost like cavity or core, sorry, in Fusion. So going from the outside in, we're going to leave a 1 millimeter material because this is a roughing operation. You can control a step over. Now this was a 50 millimeter cutter. Change that to 20 millimeter step over. And then we can do a step down here of maybe 3 millimeters. Now, if you are brand new to PowerMill, I would recommend that you kind of like just step through the different sections in here. So here you have some advanced offset setting. Don't really need to worry about that. If you have any steep walls, you can start working with that. Don't need that. Wall finishing, nope. Unsafe segment removal. This one is kind of cool if you're working with an insert cutter like we are doing today. With this function here, we will, if we check this one, it now knows that we are not center cutting, and it will take that into consideration. We've got some flat machining, high speed, different things in here. Next thing I want to highlight for you to know is the automatic verification. We also have this inside of Fusion. So now if we check this one, we are now gauging for holder and shank clearance. This is extremely powerful, right? In this case here, the cutter will stay away from the material if it sees any collisions between the holder and the shank. And you know, that is normally when we have those nasty collisions when it happens. Moving down here, a couple of other things. There's some rapid. You can control, you calculate your rapid moves, so you can calculate those automatically. Lead in, lead out might be important to talk about too. So a lead in for roughing, we might want to use something like a ramp in here. And the last thing I'm going to just briefly talk about is feeds and speeds is in here too. Feeds and speeds. I will, you know, we've talked about this before on the live streams when we're talking Fusion 360. You need to start out with the cutter manufacturer's recommended feeds and speeds. Find a good cutter manufacturer, somebody you can call up and ask some questions. That's what I recommend. There's a lot of great online calculators. I still go back to the tool catalog for the tool you're using and use those feeds and speeds. Just so you know, if you click up on this little button, you will get kind of like an in-depth section in here where you can do like surface feed and feed per tooth and things like that. This is all we're gonna set for our first roughing toolpath, and I'm gonna hit calculate here, and it's just gonna take a few seconds to kind of apply this toolpath here. And then I'm going to show you something that if you're a Fusion user, man, you're gonna like this. This is gonna be on my idea station for the CAM team to get inside of Fusion. So we get a little warning here, just telling us that there are certain areas that was not fully machined, what is fine because we're gonna go in with some extra toolpath. So I'll say okay to that, and can close this dialog box, and we have our first toolpath here. Now, here comes the first thing that just makes me just really become a fan of PowerMill. Notice what happened here. The cutters are machining down the side, right? And that's we normally don't want that. We understand why I did that because it just analyzed the model, but we're probably holding this part a vise or something, and just because somebody applied some chamfers to it, it's going to machine that down. Check this out. If we go over and click on Toolpath Edit, okay, and here comes the magic. I'm just going to left window around these toolpaths and click Delete. Boom. It just healed up that section. What? Wait a minute. What? Let me just go over to another corner. Spin the model around here. Literally, this is, I think this is absolutely awesome. I'm just gonna window the section of the toolpath that I don't want and hit delete, and it automatically heals those toolpaths right up. Woohoo! This is worth the money in gold right here. We can literally just clean these up. Now I'm gonna show you another way you can do this in a second. Thanks to my friend Rob Walker, but just check this out. I like that already. So that's one thing you can do in here. You have some great options to adjust these toolpaths. Now I'm going to move on here a little bit further. Now, one of the things that you will always hear me talk about is simulation. go in and verify your toolpath. You can turn that on in here. It's called View Mill. Just turn this on here for a second. This to me is one of the most important things when it comes to CAM. You cannot not do this. You need to go in, and this is like looking into the future. So I'm going to go over here to my toolpath, right click and say simulate from start. And you need to, of course, take the time to watch your toolpath machining. There's no way you can there's no way you can cheat away from that. And I have spent hours watching on simulation. There's a lot of different ways you can do things in here. You just need to know that the simulation is in here, just like we have it inside of Fusion and other CAM software. You need to take the time to do that. I'm not gonna, you can do all kinds of stuff. I'm not gonna get too far in here. And actually, one of the things you can do is you can like change how it looks at it. So if you're looking at it as the tool or the table and things, but short on time, but you gotta go in and simulate it, make sure it looks it looks good. The other thing that is pretty dang cool about PowerMill that I like, that is that you can create, yes, we're gonna hold the stock simulation. Get out of this here, okay? Another thing you can do in here is you can create what is called stock models. So right now we've applied our toolpath here, and you can kind of see that sitting over here in the left. You can turn it on or off by clicking the little light bulb. You can create a stock model. And what this will do is the software can use this to reference future toolpath from. So if I right click on it, it's probably the easiest way to do it. Say create a stock model. And you can create multiple of these. So I'm just going to call this stock model, and I like to put a number on it, number 1, and I'm just going to accept this. So now I've got this stock model created, but it's really just like the stock block we created in the beginning. But what we can do, we can then start adding toolpath to this. So I'm going to go up and take our roughing toolpath, right click on it, and I'm going to add it to the stock model. Now when I do that, you will see that that gets added down here. And then we get a little calculator next to it. I'm just going to right click, and I'm going to go ahead and say calculate. And you will see, again, the colors in CAM software. Why all these why all these girly colors? I'm just kidding. It doesn't matter. We get, like, you can see that our model changed in. That's going to bring me over to this view over here to the right. I talked a little bit about that in the beginning. So the first down here in the bottom is your block or your stock. You can turn that off. See that flashing on the screen here? Turn that off. The other one you can turn off and on is the model itself. Now it's kind of hard to see anything right now, but I'm going to turn it off just for a second, because what I'm going to show you with this stock model is that we can actually go in here, and if we turn it on to shade and let it update, then we see that finished result kind of from our simulation in here. So this is what our roughing operation kind of had left us in here. Another thing that is kind of neat is you can go and right click on it, and you can say show rest material. And now it actually is going to just show us what is missing on the model. So that is kind of that's kind of cool too in here. Just give it 1 second here. See, so now it shows us all the things that is left over. I really like that. So this stock model here is really powerful. I'm going to right click on it again. I'm going to switch it back to show all material, so you can kind of see it right here. We can reference that for our next toolpath. So I'm going to turn our block back on. I'm going to turn our model on underneath it, and then we can start our next toolpath. Now, so that we could go up and do what we did before. We can go up here and click toolpath. But one of the things that we can actually do is we can right click and go in and edit the existing toolpath, the existing roughing toolpath. So that's how you do that. It's just going to open up here. And if you actually right now, you will see we can't change anything in the area. If we wanted to edit it, you will click on the little recycling button up here. That will let us edit it. But the next one on it will let us clone it. So this is kind of create a derived operation. If you ever watching the Fusion 360 cam, then you know what derived operation is. Inside of PowerMill, this is called clone. So we're gonna make a copy of this toolpath. Click on that. It gives us a warning because we had made manual edits to that first toolpath, but we're okay with that. And now we're actually in our second one, and you can see that now we had the roughing, and here's the second one here. So I'm gonna call this one rest machining. Okay, and if we go, make that capital too. Come on. The work plane, the block still the same. Now tool, we had that insert cutter we had created before, right? But you can actually also create your tools from right in here. So we can actually just go in and say, well, now I want a 20 millimeter cutter for my rest machining. It's gonna have a 25 millimeter flute length in here, and I'm gonna call this one, give this a 20 millimeter. So in the first one, the first tool I created right out here in the menu, but you can actually create them right inside of the operation. So let's make this a 4 flute. And if I want to get out to that editor you saw before, just click on the pencil. So, right? So I think this somewhat makes sense. So now we're back out in that editor we had before. You saw before how I clicked on that little plus sign to add a little bit of shank. We can do the same thing here. We can actually also go to the next one and we can add a holder if we want to. So let's make a holder that is 80 by 50 by 100. So, I think if you work with other cam systems, a lot of this stuff should be pretty self-explanatory. Give that a little bit of sitting right there. That should be pretty straightforward if you're coming from other software. Now you saw before when I did the roughing operation how I used the delete function. I almost want to do it on purpose again, but just so you know, you can of course also control a boundary just like we're doing inside of Fusion 360 or other CAD software. So here I can go in and select a user specified boundary, and again if you're holding your cursor over, you get a little menu that shows up here. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm literally just going to roll over and select right on my model here, and select the section here, and on the model section, and you can see the yellow that now it knows the boundary. So accept that. So that was how we set the limits. So now we don't machine down the sides. Model appearance is very much like before, but now you notice we have the rest machining tab, right? That's kind of what we're doing now. We're looking at the previous operation, and now we can change our step over to maybe 10, and let's just go 1 millimeter step down, and then we can go into this rest machining section. And inside of Fusion, we many times use the toolpath where we're looking at the previous tool, but now we can actually select that stock model we just created. Right? So now we're using that stock model from the previous operation to go on. A couple of settings you should know about. Detect material thicker than. So you can set a tolerance here, so you can make, so if there's like a small feather, you don't rest machine that. You can also control how much further than the rest machining area you want the cutter to go, so you make sure that it kind of go past a little bit. Make this 4. That's fine. Let's go down to the unsafe segment removal. So again, offset, step vary, cutting, and wall thickness. They are only for specific scenarios where you need those. This cutter is a standard. This is a standard end mill, so it is center cutting. So we don't need that section on there anymore. Of course, for some of the remaining feet and speeds, you gotta go in and change those to whatever your cutter is. But we're just gonna hit calculate here and let this calculate. So I'm just gonna take a sip of water. So this is gonna start calculating here. This is gonna take a little bit longer than normal here. Oof. I don't have the air conditioner on in my office. It's like 88 degrees in here, so it's a little warm. So just to kind of like quick recap, because some people are like, wait a minute, what are we doing today? It is Friday, it is Cam. Make sure I show you my favorite Friday t-shirt. But I'm showing PowerMill instead of Fusion 360. Got a couple of questions if I would show that. That's what we're doing today. And there's some pretty cool functions in here that I think that, you know, somehow I hope somebody will go on the idea station and get the developers to get those inside of the software. This here, as it's still calculating, you can see the bars running down here. This here, I just want to give you an opportunity to see another CAM package. If you ever go out, apply for a new job, and they tell you they're using PowerMill, you can, after today, you can say, well, I'm somewhat familiar with it. It finished calculating. You will see that we get the same warning we got before about the regions. There's certain regions that don't get touched. That's fine. You will see that now the toolpath looks a little different, right? Because now it's just going in rest machining these different areas. And again, notice how it's not machining all the way down the edges anymore because we have applied that. So with that done, we can go into that rest machining and add that to our stock model and calculate that. And I'm going to show you just in a second. We're going to apply one more toolpath, the finishing or semi-finishing toolpath, and then I'm going to show you before we post the code out why this whole stock is really, really cool. So let's add the last toolpath in here, a finishing toolpath. So I'm going to go up to toolpath, just like we did before. And instead of an area clearance, I'm going to select a finishing toolpath here. And I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. And I'm going to select what is called a steep and shallow finishing operation. Now, I did a video about 3D machining because a while back, and send me an email. My email address is down in the description area. I made a video a while back about 3D machining because I think that for some people, it's kind of hard to figure out what kind of toolpath you should be using because there's many when you get into 3D machining. And in that video, I talked about how in the lot of packages, CAM packages, you're combining types of toolpath. And that's actually what this one does. In that video, I talk about how we have a parallel cut, that's what you see up there, and kind of like a collapsing cut. So that's what I'm going to select here. Hit OK to that. You see our stock model kind of updated right there. So now our rest machining made a little bit finer. So we're going to call this one, I don't know. This is probably a semi-finish, but it's going to be the last one we're adding in here. Again, work, plane, block, we already set. Tool, shift this over to, change this over to a ball end mill. Let's make that a 16 millimeter ball end mill. I'm not going to add any any shank to it right here. Just move on because we're coming up on the half an hour. Probably has some more than 4 flute on it, but whatever. Let's go to the steep and shallow section. Right down here. And one of the things that I like in here is you can calculate your step over with the cusp. So that's kind of like the step. It's not the step over, but it's more like the cusp, the waves created when you are 3D machining. So we can change that to 1. I'm going to make a step over of 2 millimeters in here. You will also see, again, a lot of options in here. You will see that we now have 0 thickness in here. And I'm actually just going to click calculate on this toolpath. And let's just let that wrapping up as we're hitting the half an hour. Let that wrap up here. All right, so that's going to calculate in 2 seconds. And notice how it starts applying the toolpath right here. You can see them develop in here. What is, you know, is always nice to kind of like see them grow, whatever you want to call it. But if there's anything I want you to take away with this before we start posting out code and everything, is that if you're coming from another CAM package, right? Like we're coming from Fusion 360, whatever it is, these are the same steps we kind of are using. Now let me just add this to now our stock. Add that to our stock model and calculate that. So I don't want, you know, it's all about the basic steps and get the toolpath in. And yes, if you're going in here to use this for 5-axis, and we can do live streams on 5-axis. I definitely at one point want to come back in and do something on additive possibly. But just I want to make sure that you kind of see this and get an idea about this. Now we can turn our toolpath off up here on the light bulb, right? And if I turn off the model and turn off the stock, now you will really see the stock model, I think, kind of shine. Notice how we now get a really good view in here in PowerMill of what is machined and not machined. That is really, you know, that gives you kind of like a confidence booster that this is what you're gonna get when you are out there. I showed in the beginning in here when it comes to the roughing machining, how we had the toolpath edit where we could just delete out of here. Also be aware of that if you click on the toolpath connection for this semi, that you can go in here and you can change like the lead in, lead out. So we start out with a ramp. We can change that to a normal surface arc here. So you have control over like lead in, lead out. You can click on these here. We'll bring that from the lead in to the lead out. Linking tabs. Links means between toolpath. All these things in here. I'm gonna wrap this up here. We'll actually post some code out because I think that is important. But this here, hopefully, if nothing else, if you are brand new to PowerMill, this here, setting up the stock, setting up the work coordinate system, your offset up in the corner, applying these toolpaths, following it from step by step. Hopefully this was useful. You let me know. All right, let's fire up some code because code is really the only thing that matters. All the other stuff is cute, but NC code is what matters. So let's click on NC code. Code is code. That's what the machine needs. You will know that there is a post coming with this here that you can start using, and definitely hit the PowerMill forums and PowerMill on Autodesk.com for more information here for that. But I'm gonna go in here and if we go into C drive, I'm just gonna work my way to it. Users, public document, Autodesk. Are you following me? Manufacturing post processors. And in here you will see that there is a generic post in here for a lot of the different machines. Let's select a Fanuc machine here. Open that one up. And to bring your operations in, this is actually kind of cool. I'm just gonna select the top roughing over here and the semi. Select all three operations and drag them right. Should be able to drag them right. I thought I could drag them right over to the setup. Maybe not. Maybe I'm still in active. Inactive. This is the best thing when my. All right, let me just close out of this. Oh, what have I? Why can't I drag this now? Oh, it's still calculating. Was that it? It was maybe still calculating. Open that up there. Oh, this is the best thing about doing these live. Haha! There we go. Drag it over. Right click. And can I get back in? So now they're over here. All right. Go into settings. Now they're in here. So one of the things I want to show you is you can actually set your tool numbers in here too. 2. And set the last one to tool number 3 in here. And when you're done with this, we should have the post up here. We click write. And then it's gonna write these 3 toolpaths out to our code here. Oh, I don't even know where I put it now. Might have to repost this out again. Let's go, click here. Let's post this out to our desktop. That's probably better. Give it a name. I always call my program 7501. Going back to my days. Let's write this out. Okay, this is what matters. All the other stuff is just pretty. Close this out. Let's go down and go out on my desktop here. Whoops, not the. Come on, Windows 10. And it comes out as a tab. I'm actually going to rename this. Right click, and I'm going to rename this to a text file so we can open it, because I don't have an editor on this one. So txt, hit enter. Yep, you can change it, and let's just open this up in Notepad. And here you will see the code, the 7501 that I just called it, programmed by me. And well, this is this is all that matters, isn't it? The code for this part here. I hope this was useful. It was a little bit different. You let me know if this is something that I think I'm gonna try this once in a while. Definitely Fusion 360. That's what we do here. But I think it's interesting to see another CAM product. You let me know. Thumbs up, thumbs down. If you don't like it, you gotta be honest. And the comment area, I read them all. I reply to 99.9 of them. Absolutely appreciate you taking the time on a Friday like this to spend the time and watch this. And if you're watching the recording, of course, really appreciate that. In the description area of this video, you will find the link to the file that I used here. So if you are firing up PowerMill and want to kind of try to follow along, you can do that. My email address is down in the description area also. Any future topics you would like to see. That was live stream number 181. It's Friday. It's weekend. I hope you have a good one planned for you. And we're back on Monday, and we're back with some Fusion 360 for sure. So until then, I hope you have an awesome weekend. Thank you so much. Take care.